she was born. She could still remember that day, 8 years ago, and the terror she had felt as she huddled in the kitchen listening to her mother's screams as the doctor battled to bring the child into the world in the bedroom above. Now, she promised. "Of course I will, sweetheart. At the weekend, when I have more time, we'll set to, eh?" Contented, Emma turned her attention back to her dolls as Maria flashed a glance at the tin clock that stood on the mantelpiece. It was almost 6:30, which meant that at any second her father would be back from the chapel in Chapel End, where he was a minister. Heaving herself from the chair, she dragged the table from the wall at one side of the kitchen, across the red quarry tiles, and after lifting the wooden slats to open it out, she threw a snow-white tablecloth across it and began to set out the cutlery. Just as she finished, the door banged inwards, making the fire roar up the chimney, and Edward Mundy barged into the room, large as life and twice as nasty. Thankfully, tonight he seemed to be in good spirits, and they all heaved a sigh of relief as he sniffed at the air appreciatively. "Is that a steak and kidney pie I can smell?" Martha nodded as she wiped a strand of faded fair hair back from her face. She had been a good-looking woman in her day, but living with a bullying husband and sheer hard work had made her old before her time. Although she was only in her mid-30s, she could have been taken for 50 at least. Turning away from the stove, she wearily poured the kettle of hot water she had ready into a tin bowl for him to wash in. Slinging his coat across the back of a chair, Edward, a great bear of a man, placed his Bible down on the sturdy oak sideboard and plunged his huge hands into the water. "Have you had a good day, dear?" Martha ventured timidly. "Huh! How good can a day be when my parishioners are dropping like flies?" he retorted. "The flu epidemic that has spread from London is getting worse by the minute. Word has it that 50 a day on average are dying there. 3 little ones drew their last breath here today, and 2 more men from the pit cottages in Chapel End. The undertaker is having to work through the night to keep up with the demand for coffins." Martha chewed on her lip as she handed him a rough towel that no amount of boiling would ever get white again, then turned away to drain the cabbage into the deep stone sink. When Edward had finished his wash and was drying himself, he glanced around the kitchen before asking, "Where is Henry?" "Oh, he just ran an errand for old Minnie Hickman," Martha lied glibly, rather than tell the truth and provoke his wrath. But underneath she made a mental note to give Henry an earful when he did finally put in an appearance. Their son had been working down one of the local pits for 3 years now and hated every single second of it. Martha wished there was some other job he could do that would allow him to be out in the open air, but jobs were scarce and the whole town relied on the ribbon-weaving factories and the pits for their survival. It was mainly Henry's wages that kept their home afloat. Edward's stipend as a preacher was barely more than a pittance, augmented by modest donations from his parishioners. Sometimes she despaired, wondering how they would ever manage when Henry was of an age to wed. Even now, he was certainly never short of admirers. Still, Martha had decided that that was a problem she would face when she came to it. Henry was never on time for anything, and his mother feared he would be late for his own funeral, an event that would come sooner than he expected if his father ever got to know of even half of the pranks he got up to. Henry would sneak off and go poaching on the local squire's land when he finished his shift down the pit each evening, and Martha was painfully aware that should he ever be caught, they would be thrown out of their cottage. But then the rabbits